Hello everyone. Okay, so let us have a quick look review for our last week class. So let us go to our working directory first. Python machine learning. Okay, so in the file tab you may find our source code here. Machine learning. Regressions analyze this folder, this one. Okay, so for this chapter I would like to talk about how to using the regression analyze for the driving force for our marketing engagement. Okay, so first don't forget to import the required library. So the library we are going to import is these two library, okay? And then we have to load our data set. Since my data set is in this folder, DS data, these folders. So right now my working directory is DS data, this folder, and then it's time for us to import the data set. Go to the Variable Explorer tab here, so you may find our data set has imported successfully. So you may find there are 24 columns in this data set. Okay, so what else? The shape, the dimension for our data set. The first 5 rows for our data set. So you may have the descriptive statistic 叙述性统计. So we use describe for continued variables. Okay, so let us go back to the previous topic we have talked about. So we have to create a new variables we call engaged, and to transfer the label for response. If the response is no, so we translate to 0. If response yes, it translates to 1. So we use apply function and also with lambda, so we can to do this transformation from response to engaged. Okay, so you may find we create a new variables which is engaged. So you may find at the end in our data set we create a new column which is engaged. Okay, so let us. Okay, so you have no here. Okay, so this is, we have talked about the histogram. So we have to realize the distribution for our spatial variables. So we may to draw the histogram for each continued variables. So here is the histogram of total claim amount. What is a total claim amount? The total claim amount is if you have a car accident, so you may request the claim for your car accident. So in Chinese we say 理赔. So you can claim the money back to fix your car. Okay, so here is a histogram for total claim amount. So you may use the same instructions just to replace the variable's name. Right now the variable name is total claim amount. So last week we have the homework, so you may practice with another continue variables. So you may find the variable type by using DFD type. So you may find how many variables are continue variables. For this one, customer lifetime value, income, monthly premium, auto, all the way to number of policies. The last one is the total claim amount. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These 8 variables are continue variables, 连续型的变数. So you may draw the histogram for these 8 variables. It's okay? Okay, so last time we have talked about the histogram of income, right? So just replace with the variable name with income. So you may find the distribution for income. Also, last week we find there are a lot of customers, they don't have any income for the whole years. So that's why we have to drop all the customers who the income, they don't have any income. So we use this one to figure out, so just to retrieve the income bigger than 0. So here you may find the distribution. Okay, the income is bigger than 0, so it shows with the income for the customers. So you may find the distribution for your customers. So the average for the income may be around 20,000 all the way to 40,000, 在2万美金到4万美金之间. So you may see there is a peak in this diagram, and the maxima is about 100,000, 10万美金 for the annual salary, 年收入. Okay, so that's all for the last week. For this week, we have to talk more about the data analysis. So we call 资料分析. Okay, so you may find the content for engaged variables. So we just translate no to 0, yes to 1. Got it? The dimension for our data set, the ship, 0, index 0. Index is 0, it means the first element for this tuple. Tuple means 宿主. There are 2 elements in this tuple. The first one is 9134, 9134. The second element for this tuple is 25. Also, we have to find the engagement rate. Like our first chapter, we talk about conversion rate. It's all the same. We have to find out how successfully for your campaign. But for the chapter 2, the data set is about the customer, they renew their auto insurance. Okay, so we have to find out the engagement rate for this data set. You may find we use the group by, right, to do the labels for engaged. So how many labels for this engaged? There are 2 labels, 2个阶层. There are 2 labels, 1 and 0. We have to count each label's numbers. And we show the response. You may find for the engaged 2 labels, right? Count the numbers for each response and divide by the total number of customers. 9134 9134. So you may find the engagement rate for this campaign. For this campaign, it's better than the previous one for the chapter 1. So their engagement rate is for 14%, 14%. Okay, so we have to translate from row to columns in order to make the diagrams. Okay, so for last time we have talked about pivot table. What is the pivot table? In Chinese we call 枢纽分析. It will to analyze 2 separate variables, one in index and the other in columns. So we have to make the comparisons with 2 variables. So there are 3 parameters for pivot table. One is index. You have to choose which variable should be indexed. And the second parameter we call column. So you have to choose another variable as the column. Also, you have to do the value to count, maybe the summation for the numbers. Okay, so let us to show the variables we are going to use. So right now we are going to use 3 variables, right? We would like to check the renew offer type, the pivot between renew offer type with engaged. So what is the pivot table for these 2 variables? And we calculate the total number for each response. Okay, so here we just show the first 10 rows for these 3 variables. So you may see the renew type there have maybe 4 types: offer 1, offer 3, 2, 4. Engaged, there are 2 types, 0 and 1. Response is also 2 labels, no or yes. So okay, so we with the panda function, PD is pandas, right? To do the data processing. The pandas, they have a pivot table, 枢纽分析. So we specify with the data set DF. The value we have to count the length for response. So, and what is the index variables? We use renew offer type, and we use columns for engaged. We use engaged for columns, and also we fill 0 to not available, so missing value. If there is a missing value, so we fill with 0. 假如是遗漏值的话，我们填补0。But there is no missing value for this data set. Okay, so we have to calculate the pivot table for these two variables, renew offer time and engaged. So we calculate the engaged by offer time df. So you find these tables 4 by 2 4乘2的 table. So you got 8 numbers for each. Okay, so let me show you the table, the pivot table. So you see here for index, renew offer type, there are 4 offer type for this variables. Engaged, there are 2 labels, right? So there are 4 multiplied by 2, so there are 8 numbers in this table. Okay, so you may change with these 2 variables. So we use engaged as index and use renew offer type as columns. So you may find this one, engaged by engaged, these variables. So you may find the engaged should be in the index, and renew offer time, there will be columns. So you can tell the difference between these instructions. Okay, so since the column name for the pivot table is 0 and 1, so we have to rename with not engaged and engaged. Okay, so we have to change the column name with not engaged and engaged. It's easy for us to look at. Okay, so it's time for us to have a diagram for pivot table. So you can see the distribution for these 4 offer times. So you can see the trend and difference between 2 engaged. One, the blue line indicates with not engaged. The orange line, the orange column, it presents with engaged. So what about this one? Engaged. I only used engaged. Also, we can draw the diagram for pi diagram. So you just specify the kind, the type for the geographic, your diagram, pi. Okay, so you can see the difference between 2 engaged status. The right hand side it indicates with the engaged, and the left hand side is not engaged. So you can see the distant proportion for each renew offer type. For the engaged, there are only three offer types. There don't have the offer renew offer time for the engaged. Okay, so let us to talk about the sales channel. So where does the customer to renew their auto insurance? By which channel? So we have to investigate. Okay, so we also have the pivot table. So here we replace with the renew offer time by sales channel. So for the channel, so there are objects we call 类别型变数 categories. For column we still use engaged. Okay, so here we may find the engaged by sales channel, the pivot table. Okay, here you may find the sales channel. How many sales channel? 销售的管道 they are also with 4 sales channel for the car insurance. 他们的保单呢有4种的这个销售的管道。Okay, by agent, by branch, 分公司。So you may call the call center, 客服人员。So you may be from the internet. But here you may find by agent is the majority. Okay, it's much more than the rest of the channel, sales channel. Also, we have to change the title name with not engaged and engaged as the previous one. Okay, it's time for us to to plot. It's the same, right? So we find the distribution for the distribution for engaged and sales channel. 4 sales channel with different situation, with 2 engaged status. One is not engaged and engaged. Okay, so you may try only with engaged, and you can also plot the distribution for engaged. Okay, so here is the pie diagram for sales channel. So you may see the difference between these 2 engaged status. For the engaged, say more than half, okay, more than 50% the renew car insurance, they renew their car insurance by agent, 由代理商. Okay, but few the customer use web from the internet. But this data set maybe 10 years ago. So you can imagine 10 years ago, so the people, the customers, they don't use internet a lot. But if the data set is last week or maybe the last year, I'm definitely the renew, okay, the sales channel by the internet should be much more than the rest of the sales channel. 以现在来讲的话，有网络应该会涨得更多。Okay, so since this data is maybe 10 years or 15 years ago, 这个是10几年前的资料，以前还是 agent 有代理商。Okay, so you can see the different channels for the car insurance. Okay, so so you have to practice. Okay, it's time for your exercise.